Good morning, everyone, or should I say top of the morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. You can see I'm wearing my Irish and my granny's shamrock. I am delighted to be joining everyone. I know it's very early for those folks out in BC, so thank you very much for joining us. I want to start by recognizing that I am on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. And actually, if you look behind me, I have a piece of infrastructure, which is a birch bark canoe, Algonquin made, that was used at the turn of the century for Indigenous peoples on the Ottawa River. This is going to be a great event. There is one sad note, and I want to pass this on to British Columbians and also our friends on this who've joined us today. Ian Waddell, his passing is very sad. He was a member of Parliament, also an MLA, and I think a lot of us remember with great fondness the 2020 Vancouver Olympics. So I know many of us are celebrating his life and remembering him today. So I'm happy to be joined by so many friends. First off, the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Ron McKinnon, Member of Parliament for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam. The Honorable Rob Fleming, BC Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure. The Honorable George Heyman, BC Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. Maybe that's a new addition to your title. The Honorable Bowen Ma, the BC Minister of State for Infrastructure, and Gigi Shenko, the Interim CEO of TransLink. So it's awesome to have what a great group of people who I know care greatly about transportation and cleaning it up. This is really a time where I think we're all reflecting about the future we want. We are certainly in a health crisis with the pandemic, but it's also an economic crisis. And we know that we need to be ambitious as we look at building back better. And of course, that means exceeding our climate targets, as Jonathan Wilkin has worked so hard to set the path for, and also to achieve net zero. We have always thought big in Canada. The Transcontinental Railway, the Trans-Canada Highway, the St. Lawrence Seaway. We've thought about building the future we want, and that's certainly a focus of our government. Through the pandemic, we've been working very hard to approve projects quickly, including projects in British Columbia. We've approved 2,300 projects since the pandemic started. We also introduced a COVID stream, which is intended to be very fast investments to help folks live through COVID. And 80% of the money is coming from the federal government. We just announced, I announced with the Prime Minister and Minister Wilkinson, a huge investment in public transit, $15 billion over the next 8 years that will really help move forward on some really ambitious projects. I know there's a lot of ambition in British Columbia, and we're looking forward to moving forward on some of those projects that will transform lives. There's also permanent public transit funding, $3 billion forever, because we need to provide certainty to communities across the country, including communities in British Columbia, and certainly people in the mainland who understand how important public transit is to get people around faster, cleaner, and in more affordable ways. I'm mom, and I'm obviously Irish, so I believe that you need to get triple benefits from every taxpayer dollar spent. We need to get jobs and growth. We need to tackle climate change and hit net zero, and we need to build more inclusive communities. That's why I am so happy to be here today to announce that the federal government is investing in upgrading the West Coast Express, a critical commuter train connecting people from the lower mainland to the downtown core. We're joining the province of British Columbia and TransLink, with the federal government putting in half the funding to refurbish 7 locomotives for the West Coast Express commuter train to make them more efficient, reliable, and environmentally friendly. As I know Minister Wilkinson will explain, curbing emissions from the transportation sector is absolutely vital to exceeding Canada's climate target and to achieving net zero emissions. Our government is focused on supporting cleaner, more climate resilient rail options as they play a significant role. We need to get Canadians around in faster, cleaner, and cheaper ways. The government of Canada is investing more than $10.2 million, and this will help expand the lifespan of these locomotives by 15 years. Un petit bout en français. Je suis ravie de me joindre à la Colombie-Britannique et à TransLink pour annoncer l'octroi d'un financement qui permettra de reconditionner 7 locomotives du train de banlieue West Coast Express dans le Lower Mainland pour les rendre plus efficaces, plus fiables et plus écologiques. Le West Coast Express constitue un moyen de transport important pour les gens de la Colombie-Britannique. Le financement fédéral aide à réduire, à réutiliser et à recycler en remettant à neuf les vieilles locomotives et en prolongeant leur durée de vie utile. Le gouvernement du Canada investit plus de 10,2 millions de dollars pour reconditionner ces 7 locomotives et les garder en service pendant encore 15 années. C'est important pour atteindre nos objectifs climatiques. Et le soutien du gouvernement fédéral accorde aux solutions ferroviaires propres et résistantes au climat qui jouera un rôle de premier plan. I know that Ron McKinnon will explain how important that this investment is for folks in his riding, that it really makes a huge difference in the lives of people. And that's what we're focused on. How do we improve lives of people? How do we support their climate ambition and help them get around in cleaner ways? And of course, how do we build more inclusive communities? We've been spending a lot of time in investing across the country, including in BC, where we've invested $4.3 billion in more than 540 projects. These include upgrades to the Millennium and Expo lines, as well as funding for the Millennium Line Broadway extension. The pandemic has really made us realize that communities are what we make of them, and that infrastructure is key to the local economy, it's key to climate action, and it's key to inclusive communities. We will get through this, but then we will have the climate crisis. And if we use the same ambition, the same vision, the same focus on science and listening to scientists, and if all levels of government work together, we will be able to build a cleaner future for our kids. I'd now like to invite my good friend and certainly a climate champion, the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, to speak.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Je suis très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui avec vous. I'm pleased to join you from North Vancouver, which is on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. As I reflect on this announcement, it comes to mind that the locomotive has long been a symbol of nation building in this country. In the 19th century, the locomotives of the Transcontinental Railway quite literally brought our country together. In the 21st century, these new lower emission locomotives of the West Coast Express are part of another effort requiring a national response, averting the catastrophic impacts of climate change. We can, and we must, reach our 2030 emissions reduction targets under the Paris Agreement, and we must achieve net zero emissions by 2050. This is what the science tells us must be so. However, this requires dramatically reducing emissions from the transportation sector, among others. Transportation is one of our largest sources of emissions in Canada, accounting for about a quarter of Canada's total greenhouse gas emissions output. Clean, reliable, and affordable public transportation options are an indispensable part of that. And that's why today's announcement is so important. Our public transit and transportation networks are a vital part of what keeps cities thriving and prosperous. With more than 2.6 million boardings every year, commuter trains like the West Coast Express make it possible for communities to stay connected. It is hard to believe for those of us who have lived here for quite a while, but it's been 25 years since the introduction of the West Coast Express here in the Lower Mainland. And during that time, it's reduced a significant amount of traffic and a significant amount of emissions. Today's funding announcement will ensure that the West Coast Express is an integral part of the future Canadians are demanding, one that is clean, sustainable, and prosperous. Working with Canadians, the Government of Canada has an ambitious but achievable plan to get there. Building on the accomplishments of the Pan-Canadian Framework developed by my colleague, Catherine McKenna, Canada's Strengthened Climate Plan includes 64 new and enhanced measures, with an additional $15 billion in direct investments and another $15 billion committed to investments in public transit. Today, we stand here collectively together, the federal government, the province of British Columbia, and TransLink, because we know as a group that we cannot make these progress alone. It is going to take all of us working together to make progress on transportation infrastructure and certainly on the climate crisis. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. And I would now like to hand it over to my friend and colleague, Ron McKinnon, the MP for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Well, thank you, Minister Wilkinson, and good morning, everyone. I'd like first to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded traditional territory of the Coquitlam peoples and within the shared traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Squamish, and Stolo peoples, who have called this land home for many thousands of years. I'm pleased to be with you all today with my colleagues, Minister McKenna and Minister Wilkinson, as well as BC Minister Fleming, Minister Heyman, Minister Ma, and Ms. Chen Cole for today's funding announcement, which will improve public transit for residents of BC Lower Mainland. Today's announcement, of course, focuses on the West Coast Express, which provides 68 kilometers of commuter rail service between Mission and Vancouver, providing Lower Mainland commuters a clean, sustainable way to get to work. The West Coast Express has been in service for over 25 years. I was here when it began. I remember it well. Of course, I remember the Beatles music as new as well, so that, we'll leave that go. In that time, the Lower Mainland population has grown a lot. This growth has only increased the importance of finding new ways to get around safely and efficiently. The West Coast Express is more than just a commuter train. It connects suburban communities, brings people and businesses closer and together, and creates opportunities for good jobs and local commercial growth. I myself have had the opportunity at different times to commute on the West Coast Express between Port Coquitlam and downtown Vancouver. In addition to taking a lot of cars off the road, it's a nice way to start a hectic day, watching Burrard Inlet go by while drinking fresh coffee. It was also a great chance to catch up on sleep without worrying about traffic. Although I had to be careful going home, I was always a bit concerned I'd sleep through and wake up in Mission. So many residents in Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, and across the Tri-Cities region rely on the West Coast Express every day to get to work and to contribute to our communities. So I'm delighted that the West Coast Express will continue to support the next generation of Lower Mainlanders in getting where they need to go affordably and sustainably. With these new investments, this will now be insured for years and years to come. So I would like now to invite my provincial colleague, the Honourable Rob Fleming, BC Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, to provide more details on the funding we're announcing today. Minister Fleming.
Thank you so much, Ron, and good morning. I'm Rob Fleming, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, and it's an honor to be joining everyone from the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. I'm very pleased to join Minister McKenna, Minister Wilkinson, MP McKinnon, who just spoke, and Ministers Heyman and Ma, and our CEO from TransLink. Thank you all for being here and for your commitment to improving transportation in British Columbia and in the Lower Mainland. We know that before the pandemic, every day around 12,000 people, 2.6 million annual boardings, utilize the very successful West Coast Express from communities like Ron's in the Tri-Cities to the Fraser Valley, connecting to Vancouver, to commute to and from work, to get to school, to shop, and to go about daily life and make appointments. So it's important that we build back better and that we have reliable and efficient transportation for years to come. The West Coast Express is indeed Canada's most successful commuter rail system. As Jonathan mentioned, it has just celebrated last year its 25th anniversary, so a very significant milestone in its service record. As a government, it's our responsibility to ensure that people have continued access to safe and reliable transportation to get from one community to the next. And that's why the province is thrilled to be investing $9 million towards this refurbishing and improvement of the West Coast Express locomotives. This project will go a long way to supporting the people who rely on the West Coast Express to commute in and out of Metro Vancouver, and it will continue our efforts to tackle climate change, get people out of cars, and stop them from contributing to congestion in the region. As was mentioned by Minister McKenna, COVID-19 has challenged us all a great deal over the last year. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing it every day with vaccines and with heroic efforts from our frontline essential workers. We're committed to building back BC better by continuing to invest in important transit and transportation jobs that create jobs, create employment, give people more options where they need to get to go, and indeed help meet our Clean BC climate goals by getting people out of their cars and onto cleaner, more efficient modes of transportation. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. It's a pleasure now to turn it over to my colleague, the Minister of Environment and Minister responsible for TransLink, the Honorable George Heyman.
Thank you very much, Minister Fleming, and it's my pleasure to join everyone today from the traditional territory of the Musqueam and the Squamish and the Slightly. For people all the way from Vancouver to Mission is critical to our fight against climate change. It's critical to our economy, and the West Coast Express is not only iconic, it's key to our efforts to move people reliably, comfortably, and efficiently. We're making improvements today by investing in extending the lifespan of the locomotives and improving the reliability. We're going to improve transportation and we're going to be more efficient. The new head-end power units will be more energy efficient. They'll allow longer trains and greater capacity while producing fewer emissions. That will help us in the future as we build the population and move people comfortably as we keep our commitment to net zero emissions. As part of our commitment through Clean BC, we're supporting cleaner, better options for people to get around in their communities all over, reducing pollution and fighting, along with the federal government and TransLink and partners across British Columbia, to build the net zero emissions future that we all want. Our partners at TransLink have been leaders in reducing emissions from the transportation fleet. We're working together to reduce congestion and make transit a viable, reliable option for more and more people. We're expanding the network for people living in the Fraser Valley and throughout Metro Vancouver. The West Coast Express is a key part of our commitment. Today is just one more step toward a better, cleaner transportation system in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. It's a pleasure, as always, to work with our federal partners and our partners at TransLink to make this happen. Thank you very much. And I'd now like to turn it over to my colleague, Bowen Ma, the Minister of State for Infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Minister Heyman, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. As you heard, my name is Bowen Ma. I'm the Minister of State for Infrastructure, and I'm speaking to you also from Victoria on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. Like Minister Heyman just said, this is an exciting announcement for multiple reasons. We know that investing in BC's infrastructure is vital, especially when it means we're investing in affordable, more socially and more environmentally responsible transportation options for British Columbians. By working together with our partners and investing in existing infrastructure like the West Coast Express, we can keep people moving while continuing to build new projects as part of the region's long-term plans for transit. With an estimated 1.1 million more people coming to the Lower Mainland over the next 2 decades, the growth of the region, including the Fraser Valley, will depend on a strong transportation system. That's why we're working with regional mayors, TransLink, and other stakeholders to discuss various transportation options for the Lower Mainland now and into the future. This means that not only are we investing in big, new, and exciting transit projects like rapid transit projects, but we're also taking care of the transit systems that people rely on today to support continued ridership and ensure British Columbians get to where they need to go, especially as ridership grows. That's why we're thrilled to be working with our federal partners on this project and other transformative projects that will make life better for people commuting in, through, around, and out of the Lower Mainland. I'd like to conclude by emphasizing that supporting British Columbians by helping them get around more efficiently and more affordably is a key part of building back our economy and reaching our GHG reduction goals for the benefit of all British Columbians. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'd like to turn it over to TransLink CEO, Gigi Chen-Kuo.
Thank you, Minister Ma, and thank you to all of our partners in government here today. I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking from the respective and shared territories of 19 Indigenous communities from Vancouver Island to the Fraser Valley, upon whose lands I am grateful to live. I would also like to acknowledge by name the 10 local First Nation communities located within TransLink's service area: the Katzie, Kwantlen, Quiquitlam, Matsqui, Musqueam, Kikite, Semiahmoo, Squamish, Swasan, and Tsleil-Waututh, on whose territory we work, operate, and serve. Today is a great day for the future of reliable transit in Metro Vancouver, and it's so important in times like these that we keep looking ahead to what's coming next. For over 25 years, the West Coast Express has provided our customers in Mission, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, and the Tri-Cities with fast, reliable, and comfortable service, while also giving them one of the best views in all of Metro Vancouver. I remember the inauguration of West Coast Express as a newly minted transit employee at the time. Today, the West Coast Express and our overall system does not look anything like it has in previous years. After many consecutive years of transit ridership growth in this region, ridership has dropped significantly throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are still seeing only 40% of the ridership levels we had in 2019. But I have full confidence that our future is bright and that the ridership will return as vaccinations continue to get into the arms of people all over this region. Today's announcement is about investing in the future. With this new funding, we will be able to refurbish the engines on our West Coast Express locomotives that are reaching the end of their lifespan, while also acquiring an additional locomotive. These upgrades mean that our customers can consistently get home on time after a long day of work or school. These upgrades mean that we can continue to deliver more reliable, greener service to our customers for years to come. And most importantly, these upgrades mean that the residents of Mission, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, and the Tri-Cities will continue to have this premium alternative to driving for their daily commutes. I want to thank each of our partners in government for prioritizing this West Coast Express service. Delivering reliable transportation consistently through services like this one is a vital part of our region's sustainability, livability, and economic prosperity. Thank you for your time, and now we welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you to all our speakers. A note for reporters who are waiting on the phone to please press *1 if you'd like to ask a question. That's *1 to enter the queue. You are limited to one question and one follow-up. Please also remember to take your phone off mute. You will not be audible until your name is called. Before we move to the questions, I'd like to ask all our speakers to briefly pose for a photo. Thank you very much. Our first question today is from Bob Mackin at Breaker News. Bob Mackin, please go ahead.
Bob, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry. Here I am. Good morning. I've got a question about a federally, provincially funded mega project that is in MP Wilkinson and MLA Ma's ridings. Last week, Metro Vancouver announced that the North Shore wastewater treatment plant has been delayed to 2024 and that the new budget will be $1.058 billion. It was supposed to be finished by 2020 and cost half the price. The chair of Metro Vancouver, Sav Dhaliwal, told me that the federal and BC governments are not putting any more money into the project right now. They've been asked for more funding. Are the federal and provincial governments looking at funding increases for next year to bring this up, especially since there's a greater tax burden being faced by Metro Vancouver residents?
We seem to have lost Minister McKenna, so if I can ask Minister Wilkinson to jump in on that.
Well, this is all relatively recent news. As you know, Bob, the budget, the revised budget was just announced last week. And I have not yet had a chance to have a conversation with Metro regarding what their thoughts are in terms of what they would like to see from the federal and provincial government. I'm certainly happy to engage that conversation. But as you know, the federal government has already committed very substantial funding to this project, and it's an important project from an environmental perspective that needs to be completed. But obviously there is concern with respect to the increases in the overall capital that's required to get this done.
Bob, did you have a follow-up?
Yes. Also about the North Shore Wastewater Treatment Plant, the design, build, finance contractor is Acciona, and this is the same company that's working on the Site C dam. That's doubled in price to $16 billion, and that's been delayed as well. Acciona has contracts for the new Patella Bridge, as well as the Broadway subway. What do you say to taxpayers who are worried about waste and corruption? They're worried about waiting longer and paying more for projects like this, especially involving Acciona, which is a company that it looks like it's quite spread thin. What do you say to taxpayers about what's going on with all these projects?
Sorry, I'm just rejoining. So I had a bit of a challenge there. I don't know if there was a previous question that another minister followed up. My computer just, I don't know, unexpectedly shut down.
There was an initial question just about the increase in costs of the North Vancouver wastewater treatment plant and whether the federal and provincial government were going to be working to respond to that. And that I think we've kind of dealt with. But the follow-up question is just respecting the contractor that's been hired by Metro, as well as I guess for Site C and a couple of other projects. I don't know if the provincial folks want to respond to that.
Thank you very much. This is Bob. Can you hear me? It's Minister Fleming.
Yes, again.
Yeah. So what I would say is that on the Patella Bridge replacement, we have a partnership between Acciona and another firm. So it's a consortium there. We're very, very pleased that that project is underway now within River work having begun. We have a very, very strong on-the-ground management team there through the TI Corp. I think it would be fair to say that there are many lessons learned from the Site C dam project. I don't think that there's very many similarities in terms of the technical or engineering type of work in the project, but in terms of oversight and project management, on both Broadway subway and on the Patella Bridge replacement. We have a very, very strong team in place. We're happy with the work that's begun, and we're very pleased that both of those projects are underway since the turning of the calendar year. These will not just create hundreds or thousands of jobs, but tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs into the Metro Vancouver regional economy.
Thank you very much. That is all the questions we have today. So thank you to everybody for joining, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.